one chapter a day in the Great Controversy. And I got on this because while I was in California, you know, and I was traveling back, and I was kind of getting tired of listening to whatever was on the radio, so I went on my phone and I looked for sermons. And I got on this sermon series with Dwight Nelson. So all the way back, you know, you all know who Dwight Nelson is, right? He's the pastor at Andrews University. And he was doing this series, and it was a series he did back in, I think, 2011. But it didn't make any difference. So I said, I'm going to list this. It was a series on the spirit of prophecy. And I'm not going to go through all of that. But anyway, it inspired me that what I need to do is to, along with my Bible study, is to sit down and read something every day from the spirit of prophecy. And as he was talking about the gift of prophecy and everything, he told a little story about how he had read back in, when he was a student out in, no, he wasn't a student, he was a new pastor, and he was interning out in Oregon. And anyway, he met some guy out there that he knew who had been one of his instructors, and he said, I'm feeling just like I don't know what to do. You know, I don't feel like I'm good enough. And he used those kinds of words and all that. And he said, I'm just feeling kind of down. And I can't get my spiritual life going. And so anyway, this guy didn't even talk to him. He says, just read Steps to Christ. Read Steps to Christ. And he went on his way. So Dwight Nelson sat down and he read through, and he says, Steps to Christ, reading Steps to Christ, changed his whole life. And as he was going through this series, he said there's 3 books that he would say that you all ought to read from Ellen White. And he used a lot, he talked a lot about Ellen White and the troubles that she went through and all that, the disbelief that even church members had about who she was and all of that. But anyway, finalized that, and Ellen White was a great prophet in our church who sent us a great message. Not to supersede the Bible, but to enhance the Bible. Anyway, he said there's 3 books. And so I'm going to say this to you because I want you to hear this because I really believe this is true. There's 3 books we ought to be reading. There's a whole bunch. I mean, you can go on, you know, there's an app on your phone. You can get Ellen White, you can get on your phone, you can get every book, every document that Ellen White ever wrote. All right? But anyway, he said 3 books, and I would recommend this to you. Steps to Christ. And I've read Steps to Christ through. It's an incredible book. Steps to Christ, The Desire of Ages, and The Great Controversy. He said those are the 3 books that if you never read anything else, you read those 3 books. And so I decided, well, I'm going to start reading Great Controversy. And I started reading somewhere in the middle because I didn't want to read necessarily. I've read the first chapters a little bit, so I started reading. I don't know why I picked this, but I picked European reformers, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that today as we get into this. But I wanted to say this. You know, there are about, I don't know about you, but, you know, I've spent time in my life where I felt that the church really didn't have anything to offer me at all. And I've told you this before, but I quit the church once. After I'd been a pastor for 12 years or so, I just said, I'm done. Went through a bad time in my life, and I just quit. And had it not been for a drug addict, I probably wouldn't have come back, at least come back quite so soon. A wonderful person by the name of Jim Kibolowski, when I was working at Battle Creek Adventist Hospital, went through a drug rehab program. He was a drug addict. He did prescription drugs. That was his thing. He'd go around to hospitals and act sick, and people would give him all kinds of drugs. And so he one day asked me about Adventists and said, "What do Adventists believe anyway?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. They believe about Seventh-day Sabbath and all of that kind of stuff." And he said, "Really?" "Yeah." He said, "Well, can you tell me about it?" And I was like, "Oh, all right." So I started telling Jim about a little bit about. I wasn't very enthusiastic about it, I'll be honest with you, but I'd tell him a little bit. And finally, he just kept asking me questions, and I found at home I had books, so I gave him a book, about Adventists, and I said, "Here, just read this." Kind of like Dwight Nelson, just read Steps to Christ, just read this. So it just brought up more questions. Anyway, long story short, there came a day at Battle Creek Tabernacle, the same church where Ellen White spoke, many years ago. Spoke from that pulpit, and I stood in that pulpit a couple of times and did some things from that pulpit. And I thought, man, this is almost holy ground. It wasn't any more holy than any other place, but anyway, there was one day that Jim and I stood in the baptismal tank together, and we were both baptized. Him for the first time, and me for the second time. We were both baptized. Had it not been for this drug addict, I would have never, I don't know, maybe I would have come back, but it was an incredible moment for me that I went through. I gave over a year or two, I gave him a Bible study, and I didn't even know I was doing it. I told him about Adventists and told him a little bit about their history. I knew a lot about it. I'd been to seminary, I'd been a pastor, and now I'm just, working as a recreation therapist in a psychiatric hospital where we did drug rehab too. But I remember that and the process through which I came. And so I decided that, there's three kinds of spiritual people. One of them is there's a person that is really devoted to God, but in their mind they're thinking, I just need to work harder. I just need to do better. I need to be a better Christian. And so they spend their time working and doing all kinds of things and doing, good deeds and all that kind of thing. And then in the end, they find out that they've, they still don't feel, they don't have this feeling of peace and of wholeness even. And I will tell you, I spent 12 years as a pastor, and I was a very successful pastor when you just look at it on books. But in my heart, I had never really found any peace with God in those whole 12 years of being a pastor. Here I was leading other people. I had a lot of baptisms. I brought other people into church. I did all kinds of, quote, good things. I worked hard. I was, if you want to say, I was a rising star in the Adventist work where I was. But I was nothing inside. I said, that's the kind of person I was. I was working hard. I thought, man, God must really think I'm good because look at what I'm doing. God must think I'm a good person because I am doing a lot of good things. I'm meeting my baptismal goal every year. Some of the pastors never had any baptisms. I met my baptismal goal every single year that I met my ingathering goal. I raised my ingathering goal, exceeded it every single year. Some people struggled. When I'd go to workers' meetings or something, I remember Elder Nightingale, head of the conference president for the union, he stood up and pointed me out and says, Dennis Meyers here, he's done all this stuff. I remember he said that one time, and I was sitting there, all right, I'm better than all these other guys. But you know, I wasn't. And deep in my heart, I was vacant. I was vacant. I was one of those hard workers, okay? Then there's the other kind that says, I don't want anything to do with God. And I lump maybe a lot of us into that, even though we say, well, no, I do believe in God. But, you know, in kind of a lukewarm sort of way. It's like I can kind of take it or leave it. I'm going to go on with my life here. I'll do things and I'll do some things. Whatever fits good with me and God together, then we'll be all right. So there's that other extreme, right? From, you know, for example, I had a letter, since I've been here, I had a letter written to me, not to me, because they wouldn't write it to me, but they wrote it to the conference and to the hospital people and everything, and they said, Dennis Meyers does not believe in keeping the law. He believes that the law has been done away with and that grace is, God's just going to save us. The law has been done away. Well, I do not believe that. I never have believed that. But I mean, maybe because I just talked about the grace of Jesus so much that it irritated some people. I don't know. But anyway, because every day I'm a struggling guy trying to figure out where I could find peace, all right? But anyway, so there's people that believe in the grace of God so much that, it's like, well, Paul wrote in Romans, if you read Romans, about these people that thought if they were sinners, they're doing a good thing because they're pointing out the difference between good and evil. And they should be saved, literally, they should be saved because they are pointing out to other people the difference between good and evil. They believe God, but they committed all kinds of sin. But I'm okay because I'm pointing out the difference between good and evil. Think about how stupid that is. But there were people in Paul's time that believed that, all right? So that's the other group. The people that don't believe God are kind of just, well, God's okay, but I'm pretty busy and I don't have time. And then there's the other group that I really want to be a part of that has recognized that Jesus is the answer to everything. And he, through his atonement on the cross, provided a way for me to find peace. And if you think about all of us here, think of everybody in the church. What does the Bible say? All have sinned and come short of the glory of God, right? All of us. All you kids, you're just a bunch of sinners, And yeah, just accept it, because it's good. It's a good thing. I am. Think of it. I'm just a sinner. I don't deserve anything. Amy here, she's a sinner, terrible sinner, Yeah. Just kidding. But, we're all, in a way, we're all equal before God. We're all sinners. And Paul wrote in Romans this big, long thing about how we are, in our life, we are basically terrible people. Let's see if I can find this. Give me a minute here. I just have to read this. This is what you are. This is what I am. If I can find it. I'm sorry, I don't have it. Here it is. It says, what shall we conclude then? Do we have any advantage? Not at all. For we have already made the charge that Jews and Gentiles alike are all under the power of sin, as it is written. Now here he's describing all of us. Now think about this. This is you. This is you. This is you and you. This is you, me. Here we are. There is no one righteous, not even one. Now, who is right? He's quoting somebody here. This is from the Psalms, Psalm 36. He's quoting David, all right? He says, no one righteous, not even one. There is no one who understands. There is no one who seeks God. All have turned away. They have together become worthless. There is no one who does good, not even one. Their throats are open graves. Their tongues practice deceit. The poison of vipers is on their lips. Their mouths are full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Ruin and misery mark their ways. And the way of peace they do not know. There's no fear of God before their eyes. Now, he's using that to describe all of us, right? That's us. That's me. It's all of you. We don't have anything. We come to God, we have nothing to offer. Nothing whatsoever to offer. What do you have to offer? Nothing. Can you say, God, well, look, I'm not nearly as bad as Michelle. I'm not nearly as bad. Because Michelle does a lot of bad things. Or Charlene, I'm a lot better than Charlene because Charlene does this and I do that. And so I'm better. And, certainly the Cottons, they lead, a kind of life that they're good, but not nearly as good as I am, right? And so the reality is, all of us are just equal. Equal. We're equally bad. We're equally bad because all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So what are we going to do? You guys can come up. So what are we going to do? The only thing that we have left to do is not try to work harder or just ignore it. The only thing we have to do is to come and just sort of fall at the foot of the cross, right? Just fall at the foot of the cross and say, I'm tired. I have nothing to offer. I have nothing to bring. I have no goodness. And just cling to the cross. That's what really the cross is all about. Is just got to cling to the cross. Because in the end, one of these days, I'm going to die. If Jesus doesn't come first. But, I'm going to die. And then what am I going to have? All the stuff that I've acquired, all the good stuff that I've done, or whatever it is, what difference does it make? In a few years, after I'm dead, no one's going to remember me anyway, right? I mean, they don't care. I'm just saying, we have nothing. We are nothing without Jesus, right? So just cling to the cross of Jesus. As I was reading through